Hello, my name is Gabe. For this problem, we're given the equation of a conic section, and we're asked to use the discriminant to determine which type of conic section it is, and then we're asked to solve for y and graph the conic section. So we want to use this discriminant to figure out which type of conic section this is, so we'll want to choose our a, b, and c from the equation. So just looking at this equation, we see that a is equal to 16, b is equal to -8, and c is equal to 1. So now we'll use the discriminant to determine which type of conic section this is. So the discriminant is b squared minus 4 times a times c, which in this case is going to be -8 squared minus 4 times 16 times 1. So -8 squared is 64 minus 4 times 16 times 1, which is 64. So this is equal to 0. Now, since the discriminant is equal to 0, we can say that this is a parabola. Now for part B of this problem, we're asked to go ahead and use the quadratic formula to solve for y. So you might want to think about how can we rewrite this formula in a way that it makes sense to solve for y. So what we want to do is we want to think about turning this into a quadratic in y. So what I'm going to write first is I'm going to write down our y squared term. And now for just the y term, we're going to have this -8xy and this plus 5y. So we can write this as plus -8x plus 5, and we'll multiply this by y. So notice that I did a little bit of factoring there. All I did was factor out a y from this -8xy and this 5y. And finally, what we're left with is we're left with a plus 16x squared and a minus 10x. Minus 10x. And this is equal to 0. So now what we have is we have a quadratic in y. We have a y squared plus something times y plus something which looks like a constant when we're dealing with the variable y. So now we can use the quadratic formula, which tells me that y is equal to we can think about b being -8x plus 5 plus or minus the square root of this squared minus 4 times, well, in this equation, a would be 1, and c would be given by 16x squared minus 10x. And this is all going to be divided by 2 times our coefficient a, which in this case is 1. So here, we can work with simplifying this a little bit. Let's try to take it a couple steps and see where we get to. So first, we can go ahead and we can distribute this minus sign. So we'll have y is equal to 8x minus 5 plus or minus well, here we can expand this -8x squared, or 8x plus 5 quantity squared. So we'll have a 64x squared Then we'll have negative 80x and plus 25. And here we're subtracting a 4 times 16x squared. So subtracting a 64x squared. And we're subtracting 4 times negative 10x. So we're going to be adding 40x. And again, this is all going to be divided by 2. So this is equal to 8x minus 5 plus or minus. Under the radical, we have 64x squared minus a 64x squared. So those are going to cancel. And we have a minus 80x plus a 40x is going to be minus 40x plus 25. And this is all divided by 2. So now we have y solved for in terms of x, and we simplified a little bit. So the next part of the problem asks us to use a graphing utility to graph this function. So in your graphing utility, if you're using a graphing calculator, for instance, where you might not be able to enter the plus or minus, you'll want to graph y equals 8x minus 5 plus the square root of negative 40x plus 25 divided by 2. And you'll want to graph y equals 8x minus 5 minus the square root of 40x plus 25 divided by 2. If you're using another graphing utility or a calculator which can handle the plus or minus symbol, all you have to graph is y equals 8x minus 5 plus or minus the square root of negative 40x plus 25, all divided by 2. Now, as you're graphing this, you'll want to make sure that you have your window set to a scale where you can see what the graph of the parabola looks like. Thank you.